Okay, so we have a star and this one is now moving up. So we'll just put the other star object onto the background and we'll just test that out. So this is the next step. In the last video we made the star objects and now we're just testing that they work. So we've got one moving up, one moving down. The test variable is happening each step event, and when they go outside of the screen, or one with y greater than the room height, one with y less than 0, then they should randomly reappear. So that was our goal. We've got 2 of them reappearing, so we tested that out. That's working. So now it's on to the next step. All right, this part is a little bit trickier because we're going to use a sprite strip to create an animated sprite. So we'll looking at the meteor. So we'll have our SPR, our file naming conventions, and this one is sprite meteorite. Instead of going to load sprite, we actually go into edit sprite and then file create from strip. Now if you're following along with the GameMaker book, it's a little bit different because the book is for a different version of GameMaker. So you have to do it this way. The one that we want is named Meteorite Strip 19. If you notice, they've used some good file naming conventions, so we know that this has 19 different images as part of it, or 19 different frames to be more precise, that we'll be using to animate. When it comes up, you have to plug in these numbers. Now I've already done this, but I'll set it all back to 0 so you can see how it might appear. So we have to say what are the number of images in the strip, the number of separate frames. So there are 19, and how many are in the row? 19. This is because you can have sprite strips that have more than one row. So we have 19 and 19, and then we need to know the image height and the image width. Now if you don't know precisely, you can just estimate. Usually they're in usually about multiples of 8. So we'll look at, just for a test, 32 by 32. And you'll notice, you see the square lines, you think, no, that's not actually the right size of the image. So I'll try another one, and I'll try 48 by 48, which I happen to know that it is, and I can see that that's going to divide off each part of the image well. We don't need to worry about any of this. And then you can see when it comes up, if you enable the show preview, you can see what it's going to look like in all the separate frames. Then you can see on the properties that it's each one of the individual sprites is 48 by 48. There are 19 sub-images, and you can use the arrows to scroll through them. And we'll leave it with a transparent background. So when I click OK, now I have my sprite that actually has 19 sub-images from within it. Then I go ahead and create my new object. So this is going to be OBJ, Object Meteorite. And I will use that sprite that I've just created. This one should be in front of the stars as it's passing through. So we're going to put it as at a depth of 80. So remember, 0 is the very front. Our stars we put at about 100, so these are a depth of 80. And if you want to think about our different axes, we've got up and down, our y-axes, across on the x-axis, and depth is basically thinking about the z-axis, the depth. So what do we want here? Well, on create, we want this one to move, but instead of only moving fixed, we want this one to have more degrees of rotation. So we use a move free. So move fixed basically only has 8 positions that it can move to, but with a move free it can move in any degree of a circle. So again, to add randomness, we are going to say take a random number up through 360. So that means it can go off on any one of the degrees of a complete circle and start moving in that direction. So it's not always moving in the same direction. The speed that we want this to move at is a speed of 2, so it'll be going a little bit faster than our stars. And again, just think about things. The star is farther away, moving a little bit slower. We have the meteorite, we want it to appear visually a little bit closer, moving a little bit faster. So that's our first action. Now, the next thing, what happens when it goes outside the room? So we aren't going to test necessarily just the Y, because it's might not just be hitting the y-axis, it might go off on the x-axis. So we're going to use a different test, and we're going to say, or a different event, and this one is in the other, and it's the outside room. So basically it's going to test, has it gone outside any of the x and y boundaries of the room? And that means we don't have to test for greater than y, the room height, less than 0, greater than the room width, less than x0. So it basically does all of those tests for us. So it's a built-in event. And then what we can do is have an action that says wrap, and we can say in both directions. So basically then that's going to look at where it left the room on the x and the y and send it to the opposite side of the room. We could have used this for the star, but then that would decrease the randomness. So this is, since we are having the meteorite go at different angles, they'll just keep wrapping around, and because they're starting at a random angle, that will add some randomness anyway. So we click OK, and to test that out, we'll put in some meteorites in our room and run a test. Now we can already see the meteorites are moving at a speed that's faster than the stars. If we have some that pass in front of one another or close near to each other, then we should be able to see if our depth is working. We can already tell that our animation is working, and the wrap event appears to be working. And we can see that our depth also worked when they just passed through over the star. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I save. The next thing is that we want to do this exact same thing with the spaceman object. So we want the spaceman to move, but we want him to be in front of the other one, so that we're going to change the depth, and that's just going to be at 30. And he is going to have all the same events and actions as the meteorite, but the speed is going to be 1, so that the spaceman moves a little bit more slowly. So again, we need to create our sprite. So he's going to be SPR spaceman. And we'll load him. So he's just a still. We don't need to load from a strip. I'll go through that again with the spaceship. So we have him, he's transparent, that's fine. And then we create a new object for the spaceman, OBJ. OBJ spaceman, use that sprite. So on create, so on our create event, what do we want to happen? He can move free and he'll go into a random direction of any of the 360 degrees of a circle. And we're going to make him a little bit more slow. Move more slowly than the meteorites. Oh, also I forgot that we need to set his depth. So his depth will be 30. So 0 is the very front, the spaceman's at 30, meteorites at 80, stars at 100. So those objects will pass in front of each other or in back of each other. The other thing that we need to do, add the event when it goes outside the room. We need it to wrap in both directions. To test that out, we need to put a spaceman in the room and hit our play. So we can see that the spaceman is moving a little bit more slowly. The meteorites should go behind him, which we just saw that one did. And he should wrap and come around. And if he's doing that, then we know that we've been successful with this. We've tested that. So we'll save and finish this video.